There are certain golden rules in cooking, lots of them that we've learned from our mothers and our grandmothers. But have you actually put any of those rules to the test? That is what we're doing today. Welcome to
Sabi ng Lola Ko!
What are things that your Lola or your mom has taught you that you do without thinking about it?
Magsasayang ng bigas, lalagyan ng asin yung takip.
Yeah.
Okay, ikaw.
Actually using jackfruit leaves to tenderize meat.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Don't stir the pot of rice when you're boiling it.
Okay, you?
Put a spoon, like any metal, like spoon or fork, in a pot of stew to tenderize
Tenderize
it.
it. Today we're gonna try out a few of those myths, or maybe they're not myths or facts, and we're gonna be joined by some Lolas who will be telling us these rules and why they think they should still be done in modern day kitchens. Your Lola's cute, but is she right? Sabi ng Lola ko,
Kini tudlo pod sa akong mama, lola ug iyaan. Nga kung magluto ka og adobo, nga naay suka, dili dayon o kayon. Kay paabton sa og pila ka minuto aron maluto ang suka o kayon para magpabilin ang iyahang kaaslong, gamayng kaaslong.
there's a term that we use in alcohol which is hot. Like when you drink rum or overproof whiskey or overproof rum, it's not heat as in spicy and chili, but just it gives you a hotness in your overall body and in your throat. If you've ever tasted fresh, raw suka, you actually get that. With adobo, you don't necessarily want that heat. You want the flavor that the vinegar brings without, when you're tasting it, coughing it. And that's because the vinegar hasn't, quote unquote, burned through. Now, we're not arguing that you shouldn't cook down your vinegar. I think that's a generalization that we can all agree on. What we're trying to see here is whether or not mixing the vinegar in versus letting the vinegar stay at the top or untouched within your adobo sauce makes a big difference in terms of the acidity of the overall dish. We've got 2 pots going on here. Very basic ingredients, and that's been cooking down for about 10 to 15 minutes. What we want to test now is whether or not 1 pot of adobo will be slightly more acidic because we stir it in versus just letting it kind of float and cook down. I'm going to be adding about 1/4 of a cup to this pot here, which I'm not gonna stir. And then 1/4 of a cup here that I'm gonna immediately stir in. I'm gonna let that come to a simmer and then simmer this for about 10 to 15 minutes, which should give enough time for those acidic compounds to dissipate a little bit. I'm also not gonna be covering them because the last thing you want is to trap those flavors that are in there.
A few moments later.
Okay, Sam, you're joining me, so we have an unbiased view on this. One has stirred in vinegar, one doesn't. I'll stir both of them now, so it's fair because they're ready to plate. Just the sauce.
That's sour.
Standard.
Yep. That's really sour. There's a difference.
There is a big difference.
There's a big difference. This is really acidic for me, rather than this one. So I think this was the adobo that wasn't stirred, just because some of the vinegar stayed on top. So much of the acid hasn't mixed in with all the sauces.
No, keep going. Keep making a fool out of yourself.
No way. I'd say this was not stirred.
It was stirred.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, the myth is if you stir it, the vinegar gets trapped. So what you're saying is correct.
Correct.
Yeah. The big difference I see here, if you think of acidity as a spectrum,
Right.
this is like I added lemon. It's a fruity, acidic bite. It's not hot. It doesn't make you cough. It's not too acidic or just not nice. Whereas this one, it's way more combined. It's a softer acid. It's still there,
It's like a whole flavor.
but it's like a rounder acid. Like I feel like here, which is weird, you almost think that the vinegar was added last minute.
Yeah.
Whereas here, which wasn't mixed in, it feels like the vinegar really
It's a whole
incorporated to the
yeah,
dish.
yeah. It's part of the dish.
So, Lola was correct. Do not stir dishes, especially when you're adding vinegar and cooking it down. Leave it on the top, let it burn off naturally and simmer off naturally. You'll have a much better dish.
Lola. So sabi ng lola ko,
Kung gusto mong mapabilis ang paglambot ng karne ng baka, pakuluan ninyo ito ng may dahon ng langka.
so now we have 2 pots of beef shanks. We are cooking this in nilaga way. So one pot we are gonna put the jackfruit leaves in, and the other pot we are gonna leave it as is. So according to our research, the science behind this is you need proteolytic enzymes called proteases to break down meat tissues. And apparently, sa jackfruit leaves, madami ito. So again, 1 pot, jackfruit leaves. We're just gonna put a ton. We season this with salt and pepper, very, very simple. And then we are just gonna wait for about 2 hours and see what the results are.
2 hours later.
Alright, so it has been about 2 hours na, and our nilaga is ready. And by the looks of it, I know kung saan yung mas tender. Calling features head chef. Chef Martin!
Ay!
Yun. Ika'y magta-try ngayon.
Okay, so ano yung difference niya?
So one is with jackfruit leaves, and one is without.
I have never heard of that before.
Right?
Uy! Parang upuan to
Alright.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting there. But
Nag-dry agad yung bibig ko
Yeah.
It is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Mas malambot
Malambot to.
I'd have to guess this one had the dahon bayabas.
You have to look. Ito yung wala, actually. So,
Bayabas ba? Langka.
Langka.
So I don't know, maybe something went different
maybe.
because it's weird. The one without the
Yeah.
langka leaves.
Exactly
is
the
more
same
tender.
ingredients. Exact same part of the beef.
Yeah. So, pinilit mo naman na hindi mas mataba yung isa kaysa dito.
Exactly.
Okay, well, mga Lolasaurus Rex, mahal namin kayo.
Love you, Lola.
Sabi ng lola ko,
Kung maglata ta og karni nga baka o baboy ba, butangan na to og kutsara o tinidor para dali ra siya malata.
meron tayo ditong 2 mechado. Sabay-sabay ko to siyang niluto. And ngayon na kailangan na siyang palambutin, lalagyan natin yung isa nito with our spoon. So, I'm going to choose this pot. So, siguro, ilublob natin yung kutsara. So, ayan. Aantayin lang natin to. Siguro we'll give it like 1 to 2 hours.
2 hours later.
So, our mechada has been simmering for 2 hours already. And it's now ready. So, tatanggalin lang natin yung spoon nitong isa. Equal yung pagkagawa ko with both of these mechados. And malalaman na natin if alin nga ba yung mas malambot. Seth? Ta-da!
Perfect hot stew. This is mechado.
Mechado. So, you're gonna tell me which one is actually more tender.
Which one is more tender? But
Yeah.
you cook these at the same
At
time?
the same time.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with this one first. So, I have this, maybe this is a bit of a, on 5 on the tender scale for me.
Okay, 5 or 10.
So I think this is a little bit of the same. It's a little same. There you go.
Perfect. Bagong-bagong luto. Which do you think is the winner? Same
Shit,
seasoning,
man.
same...
I can't tell.
You really can't tell, really?
I can't tell which one's more soft.
Well, ito actually yung my spoon.
Oh, okay.
And then this one is the one without.
Before you said that, I was gonna say this is more tender for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I guess a myth is a myth.
But also, we have to put into note that beef cuts like these have different fat in each parts of meat. Some have different tendons, so it varies a lot.
Well, based on science, actually, it would make more sense if you pierce the meat with the metal itself.
Oh yeah, so that
that
heat
the
goes
heat,
inside.
yeah. So
Okay,
mas
okay.
nadidistribute yung heat in the inside of the meat. But if you're just going to put it in the stew itself,
So nakapatong lang siya.
nakapatong lang siya.
Okay.
Parang wala siyang nagagawang much of a difference. So I guess that's it. On to the next myth.
Sabi ng lola ko,
Palagi hugasan ang bigas bago iluto.
is that a hard rule that we shouldn't let pass? Let's test it out. So the reason why in some cultures we have to wash rice, it's really dependent on both technology and culture. Like in the West, their processing plants are more up to date. They have specific structures for it, and it's not as exposed to the outside. Compared to the Philippines, it's still a practice to dry their rice literally on the streets. So when the process of turning your grains into rice it involves a lot of friction so that the outer shells or the husks will be removed. And obviously, they don't happen all at the same time, and what ends up happening is some parts of your rice turn into powder, like rice flour. And if we cook it right away without rinsing it, it'll turn into something more compact, more cakey, more dense, as opposed to washed rice. But for me, it's stew. That part, remove excess starch, and to make sure it's clean. We'll cook it at the same time, see if it's different. So para fair, we have 2 of the same rice cookers, right? First, the unwashed. Next is the washed rice.
A few moments later.
Oh, so obviously I know which one's which. So I'll have someone else taste it. Come hither.
Hi. Hello.
Okay, so you'll have to guess which one was washed and unwashed.
No difference at all. Like, I couldn't tell the difference if this was washed or unwashed. Like, they smell the same. They look the same also. I was expecting that since the other was not washed, it's gonna have like parang konting mga specks or anything, but there's actually
There you go.
no
Try and then
difference.
guess which one is unwashed or washed. Hello. Oh, hindi. Oh,
Here's my film.
it's the same.
Tastes the same too.
Really?
I can't tell the difference.
Texture? Same?
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it. It's the same. I feel like it depends on where you buy your rice. Depends on if you buy it from the grocery or sa palengke or sa mga granary. So I would still wash my rice. I don't think I'll stop washing my rice. Kasi sabi ng lola ko.
Me too, actually.
Sabi ng lola ko,
Hugasan ang karne bago iluto.
when we wash our meat, it actually invites a little more bacteria in. So when moisture hits the meat, the surface, and the temperature, bacteria has more time for it to grow. But pag binibili natin ng karne natin sa palengke or binibili natin outside when it's sitting out for a long time, nadadapuan ng langaw, the temperature in palengkes are room temp and it's not safe for holding raw meats, raw fish. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to not get your meat from the palengke. You want to check the quality of the meat. You want to make sure that it's not pale, it's still fresh, it's still bright red. You want to get it as early as possible, like maybe 5 or 4 a.m. Bagong katay, fresh cut, and as much as possible, it's not at room temperature for a long time. And according to food safety, having your meat in water or washing it will just spread bacteria around the kitchen that you're in. So you want to keep your meat and work area as dry as possible because liquids carry bacteria around the surface. Another misconception is pag pinapakuluan po natin yung meat and yung mga nag-rise above the surface is dirt or impurities, which is completely wrong. Those are proteins, blood, when you want to clean a broth and you want to make it more clear, you can add egg white and the proteins will cling on to those. And restaurants usually do it so that they have a less grainy, more clear looking soup that they would have. So as you can see, I have it here. I have my meat, dried it, and now we can repack it so we can actually put it aside, freeze it, and save it for the next one.
Cooking is deeply personal. It's an expression of your taste, your environment, and the ingredients you have on hand. While we all start learning from somewhere, no single approach is the right one. The best dishes often come from experimentation, creativity, and the courage to make them truly yours. Today we've learned that our Lolas can be wrong and right. So happy cooking.